Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 146th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Rebel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. Try to keep it together, Kyle. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Cameron, I'm doing great for the most part, except for one thing that's just really hindering my well-being right now.
Oh, no.
You ever had a canker sore before?
Oh, sure.
Oh, just right here on my lip, and I can't eat, can't talk. Gonna have to start doing...
Drink some chamomile.
Chamomile.
Chamomile. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know what in the world that is. Get that right there.
That's tea.
Tea. Oh, okay, well, that's not worth it because I hate tea. I thought I was going to have to switch to like sign language, halfway through this episode, just in case I can't go on any further, but we'll see if I can make it.
Hopefully you can persevere.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
No canker sores?
No, none whatsoever.
Good.
Yeah. I had a headache earlier, but solved that with some coffee and water.
That'll do it.
And ibuprofen. I just threw the bag at it.
Ibuprofen is like a miracle.
Yes.
From God.
Or science. Either. Both. Well, Kyle, we got a lot to talk about today. Coach Drinkwitz is on a roll. I mean, when is he not on a roll? But great things are happening with the football program. There's a little bit of action on the basketball side of recruiting we'll touch on. Before we do any of that, though, we're closing in on 200 YouTube subscribers. We're at 186 as of me saying this. Bunch of new YouTube subscribers. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate all of you who have been here since the beginning. We appreciate you if you just subscribed and don't actually watch us on YouTube. All of you are very much appreciated. And don't forget, you can support the podcast directly by heading on over to patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. You can pick tiers that correspond with different support levels, and those grant you exclusive access to us and the podcast. And one of them includes merch. So check that out, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. And one last time, just thank you everyone who has been watching and listening. It's a lot of fun, and we're going to have some more fun this week. And I think we'll start it off, Kyle, with a little bit of basketball news. We know everybody wants to hear about the new football commits, but let's just touch on a few things basketball related. Mizzou has had a couple visitors on unofficial visits lately. The big name, of course, is Mark Mitchell, 5-star forward from the state of Kansas, but he's going to be, I think, playing his senior year at Sunrise Christian. So that's familiar to Mizzou fans. Trey Jackson went there. A lot of high-profile high school basketball players come out of that institution. He also visited Kansas like a couple days later. So it was like the same exact photos, basically, of him in a Mizzou uniform and then a few days later in a Kansas uniform. So obviously a long way to go with his recruitment, but always great to see a 5-star guy getting a visit, coming to Columbia, seeing him in the Mizzou jersey. That's always fun. Also, 2023 forward Jalen Hooks was on campus visiting with the staff, took some pictures. He's a 4-star forward in the 2023 class. So that's all exciting.
Not from Michigan by any chance, is he?
Let me look.
I don't think he is.
He's from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, we still have a chance then.
Yeah. Also, on the basketball side of things, Konzo Martin recently said that they're not done recruiting.
Yeah, they did an interview today, and he kind of talked about some of the newcomers and said some good things about some of the freshmen. Yaya Kita had good things to say about him. Also said Yaya Kita shooting a 3-ball pretty well, which was okay. He seemed to say that about Tillman like every offseason, and we were like, I'm not sure if I want Tillman to shoot the 3.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But good things to say about a lot of the guys. And, one thing he did say is they are not done recruiting for this class. And, I mean, there can't be too many guys out there that would probably fit what they're looking for. Do you have something you want to say?
Trey Mitchell was a guy,
yes,
former teammate of Ronnie DeGray, that I was super interested in. I mean, it made sense to me. That's not happening, obviously.
He went to Texas.
Yeah, Missouri was not really ever in the mix there, unfortunately.
One name that very speculatively I would keep an eye on, that we've kind of heard some rumblings about, is Elijah Childs, and he is a 6'8", 230 pound forward from Bradley, and he is in the transfer portal. He's from Kansas City, and he averaged over 14 points and 8 rebounds a game. Low volume, but still shot 36% from three, so pretty much fits exactly what we'd be looking for as a high scoring, high rebounding forward. I mean, that's pretty much fills a gaping hole that Mizzou's probably still looking for.
Yeah.
I think there is some charges against him potentially that
off the court stuff.
He's some off the court
could be in the way
issues that are pending at this time. Don't know what's going to happen with that. So it's, a week from now, we might be talking about Elijah Childs being a addition to Mizzou. We might never hear about him ever again. So just a name to keep an eye on potentially.
Yeah, there's some legal proceedings that need to unfold first, I think, before he goes anywhere to play basketball.
Yep.
So hopefully whatever happens there, whatever needs to happen there happens. If he is free to play basketball next year, I wouldn't mind it being at Missouri.
For sure.
Okay, that's all for basketball, I think. One thing I wanted to mention on basketball, we've been seeing some videos come out of like the new additions to the team, being in Columbia and practicing and working out, spending time together. And it's insane how many new faces there are. I mean, we all know it, but when you actually see them interacting with each other and you're like, okay, these are all
completely different team,
new players. I mean, at least I had gotten so used to, Xavier Pinson, Mark Smith, Drew Smith, Tillman, Mitchell Smith, like these guys had, even the ones that hadn't been there that long, they were just like, staples. You just picture the team, you're picturing all those guys. And for the only guys returning to be Javon Pickett, Kobe Brown, and Jordan Wilmore, and everybody else is new. It's just so bizarre to watch when you see these videos of them working out or interacting together. And I want to pause the Instagram videos and be like, okay, do I know who all these people are? Okay, I know who that is. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be, I think I say this every time we ever talk about it, but I just can't wait to see how it all unfolds with minutes and who's starting and who's going to be scoring and all that stuff.
Rotations.
Yep.
I mean, Konzo Martin's rotations are tough to figure out when all the players returning.
Yeah.
So with a brand new group, we're likely to see a lot of different starting lineups and rotation. Maybe not starting lineups, but the way minutes get doled out will be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, time to switch over to football. That's what everybody's here for, probably. One quick note I wanted to mention, hashtag Mizzou made EJ Gaines was on the list of Bears tryout that I saw on Twitter. So that's pretty cool. One of the best cornerbacks, I'm just going to say it, one of the best cornerbacks in Missouri history. He had a stint in the NFL actually with the Rams early on.
Yeah, he was pretty good before he had some injury issues.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully he makes the team with the Bears. Now on to Mizzou stuff. I suppose we will start out with some 2022 action. Perhaps these two events are tied to each other a little bit. Toriano Pride, who one of the top players in the state of Missouri, has been long considered a Clemson lean. He is going to announce where he's attending college tomorrow.
Yep. And, of course, he's fresh off a Clemson visit. I just don't see any way this isn't a Clemson commitment tomorrow, and we'll just see where this recruitment goes over time, but don't really see him going anywhere else at this point.
Now, a couple episodes ago, I had you put a percentage on the chances that he would end up at Mizzou.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
Hopefully, I know I didn't say anything over 40%, but
okay.
At least I hope I didn't. But it was probably around 35-40%. But just because I knew that Missouri was in it, but I knew that we had to still get through a Clemson visit.
Right.
And that was a big thing. He might commit on the visit. He might commit shortly after. And once I heard that
his decision, it seems like he made his decision on the visit. And yeah.
So.
But Missouri, I don't want to call it a plan B, but Missouri didn't, just roll over and die with the, defensive backfield prospects for 2022. They went and hosted Marcus Scott Jr., Marcus Scott the second. How would I got it? I have it as Marcus Scott 2.
I guess you can just say junior, right?
I would think that those are the same.
Yeah.
Marcus Scott, cornerback out of Conroe, Texas. He was previously an LSU commit, and now he is a Missouri Tiger commit.
Yeah, you don't see this very often. First of all, you don't see guys flipping in June all that often, and you don't see guys going from LSU to Mizzou very often either. But Marcus Scott Jr. is a 6'2", 170-pound cornerback. So, and yeah, I think you could very well have a point that these events, that Marcus Scott commitment, Toriano Pride announcing, might be connected. It could be that Mizzou staff has known for a little while that Toriano Pride is probably not coming, so then maybe they looked for another option. Honestly, I'm going to be flat out honest. I have no idea how they knew they had a shot at a guy who was committed to LSU. I'll just put that out there. I have no clue. If maybe Marcus felt like his spot wasn't for sure in the long term there at LSU. Don't know if he just had a change of heart. I don't know, but I'm glad they made that connection.
Yeah, 24/7 Sports has his other offers as Houston, Texas Tech, and UNLV. So interesting. The LSU offer does stand out among those other offers.
Yeah,
and I don't know,
but
it's still exciting.
Yeah, he's no scrub though. I mean, he's a 4-star cornerback, and watched his film. He's a great athlete. Really high points the ball, makes plays on the ball. It's explosive.
Another tall, long-armed defensive back.
Yeah, that's a theme we're going to talk about with these cornerbacks. Is they are all over 6'1", 6'2", and that's definitely kind of a new trend for cornerbacks that we've seen in the last few years. Just kind of these tall, rangy guys. So that's definitely that he fits the bill there.
It seems like maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but it seems like defenses kind of had to catch up to the height of wide receivers. It's like, especially in the SEC, and we saw it like specifically with Mizzou, where that one season with DGB and LaDamian Washington and Jimmy Hunt and some of those guys, like tall, long-armed wide receivers that could go up and get the ball. Missouri was like one of the top schools in the country as far as like average height for receivers. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing the graphic. They would show like DGB next to a 5'10" defensive back, and like, mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you just throw it up to him every time?
Yeah.
And I feel like defenses are, starting to realize height and length is such an asset,
right,
at the defensive back position.
As long as you're not foregoing, agility and quickness with longer legs, I don't see why you wouldn't want a longer cornerback that can hang in there with those bigger wide receivers.
Okay, so speaking of cornerbacks, are we ready for this? Missouri had an exodus of cornerbacks like 2 weeks ago that we talked about, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we mentioned the fact that they might be ready to just restock immediately with two teammates from Tulsa, both originally from Texas, had a relationship with Mizzou's cornerbacks coach. And sure enough, Mizzou landed Akayleb Evans and Allie Green IV.
It is funny. 2 weeks ago, maybe, you asked me, not publicly, but are Mizzou's coaches worried about secondary depth? And I said, probably yes. I think they're worried. But we'll see how things shake out in the next couple of weeks, because we knew both of those guys were in the transfer portal. We knew their connection to Coach Fletcher. So I said, ask me in a couple of weeks, and we'll give you another answer probably. But I think it's a completely different situation now than it was 2 weeks ago, which is insane to think how different that room is now than it was then. But we'll go into talking about these guys a little bit, and just the tremendous additions these guys are for a season that starts 2 or 3 months from now.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, 2021 guys, immediately eligible, just gonna probably
plug and play.
Walk in and get lots of playing time.
Yep. And you're definitely pitching that to them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to probably get that anywhere they go. But we'll start with Akayleb Evans. And this guy was kind of the big name. I mean, he was one of the biggest transfer names out there, especially recently. But he's 6'2", 200, and he tweeted today specifically he's 200 pounds. Because I think he's been listed as 188 in a couple different spots.
He hasn't been 188 for a while. He said.
So he's 200 pounds, and he's got 2 years of eligibility. I don't know if he's going to use both of those years because he's already getting NFL looks. So very possible if he has a strong season, he's on to the NFL, and that's probably fine with us. But if he wants to come back for 2 years, that's perfectly fine too. But another option for maybe that second year is, and I'm just throwing this out there, is he had some injury issues in the past. I don't know that he's played a full season. He 2018 and 2019 both, he missed some pretty significant time with injuries. And then in 2020, I think he played about 9 games. So just something to keep in mind. It seems typically it's just kind of a freak thing, but who knows. This guy just has had incredible statistics. Like, he's not really what you think of. He's not gonna get a ton of interceptions. He's not gonna make a play in the ball every single time, but he's just a shutdown corner. And according to Pro Football Focus, he gave up just 42 receptions in his 27 games, 27 career games at Tulsa. And then against Power 5 competition specifically, in 5 games, gave up 7 completions for 45 yards. So that's definitely something you love to see is, a guy coming from Tulsa. Can he compete at the next level? In limited fashion, but definitely held up really well against Power 5 competition.
And he's going to go. He's going up against all those teams' number 1 receiver. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not putting anybody else
for sure
on them.
And it's the AAC or whatever that Tulsa's in. I mean, that's known as a pretty high volume passing conference. So they've got some good passing offenses that are in that conference. It's not like it's FCS or something.
They'll get a team in the new 12-team playoff.
Yeah,
eventually.
They probably will. But yeah, I mean, he just has everything you want to see. Good length, quickness, takes good angles. And then, yeah, I mean, what's funny and ironic about the situation and like his play style and him just kind of being a shutdown guy, it reminds me a lot of Ennis Rakestraw. I think both of those guys are similar in the way that they are just going to annoy you. They're going to shadow you. They're going to be all over you. They're going to play clean, and they may not like get a whole lot of turnovers, but they are just going to make every single pass difficult. And it's kind of like, it doesn't really show up in stat book. It's you almost kind of forget about Ennis Rakestraw when you're watching games sometimes, but for a defender, it's probably a good thing. A cornerback,
right.
It's probably a good thing that you don't hear about him a lot. So I love this addition. Obviously, that's immediate impact.
Yeah, that was he was a huge wish list item. I mean, once the rumbling started, it was like, man, I'm going to be disappointed if this doesn't come to fruition because this seems just perfect to fill in for the departures Missouri had. I'm looking at his 24/7 Sports profile from as a high school recruit, and I'm kind of blown away by his progression in his time at Tulsa. And fingers crossed, hopefully we can attribute some of that to Coach Fletcher.
Yeah. Because
Evans, out of high school, 24/7 Sports actually liked him better than other recruiting services. They had him as a 3-star player, but the 24/7 Sports composite is a 2-star player. As far as all the players in the nation for his class, he was in the 2000s. So it's such a cool story when a guy like that, who his offers, Tulsa, Kansas, and Iowa State were his only offers, major offers out of high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week a little bit. We always think about how the recruiting services have so many people to analyze and evaluate, and it's easy for guys to slip through the cracks. It's easy probably for those guys, human nature, you want to see what kind of offers they have, and when you see they're going to Tulsa, you're probably just assuming they're a 3-star at best. And yeah, I mean, and it's just early on in these guys' lives. Sometimes the guys just continue to develop and improve their skills, and that's clearly something that happened with Evans.
I noticed that he was from McKinney, Texas, and that just is so familiar. And maybe there's a listener out here who remembers better than me, but the only person I'm seeing on Missouri's roster, actually I've got Jonathan Jones, 2021 recruit, is also from McKinney, Texas.
So you're going to credit John Jones with this recruitment?
Not exactly. I just thought that
Mario McKinney?
No, I don't think that's what I'm thinking of. But I'm just so excited for this. And talk about an area of need. Yeah. I mean, there were a few spots coming into, like, during this offseason that were question marks. And we talked about it. And you alluded to it. Like, there was cause for concern with all those departures. But Coach Drinkwitz just, once again, faced with a different kind of challenge, just hit a home run.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, to think of the caliber of player that left the program, those two guys, I mean, obviously both of those guys could easily probably play anywhere. Jarvis Ware, absolutely an NFL prospect potentially at some point with his athleticism. So not only, it was the cupboard bare just numbers wise, but we were losing some really, really great players and some difference makers potentially. But I would almost project that we may have somehow upgraded that room, even if we with Akayleb Evans and Allie Green, with this 2021 season, we may have actually somehow found a way to upgrade 2 months away from the season. So
yeah, I mean, the only thing that could be a drawback now is just familiarity with the program and scheme and the coaches.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I like to caution with football and basketball, and that's something we'll talk a lot about with basketball as we get closer to the season, is your expectations for these players. I mean, these guys in particular, Akayleb Evans and Allie Green, may be a little bit different because they're going to play under the same coach they played under at Tulsa. Maybe some of those fundamental type things that coaches want their players to play with certain fundamentals and that kind of stuff may be pretty consistent. So hopefully they are able to find a little bit of comfort and familiarity and make that transition easily. But I wouldn't always expect a transfer to come in and just immediately make an impact.
Well, we've seen that in recent years. I mean, there's been some hyped transfers that it just didn't work out at Mizzou. I mean,
or it just takes time.
Yeah. Right. But what springs to mind immediately is like Sean Robinson. Mm-hmm. And now, talk about taking time. I mean, now he is a defensive back along with these guys. But even Damon Hazelton, that was, I would say, his one season with Missouri is not exactly what people thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think you can chalk some of that up to just, his third program and, new playbook, new coaches, new quarterback. It doesn't always fit like a glove. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily any one player's fault. It just doesn't.
Right.
The pieces don't really fit.
Yeah, and a perfect example, I think, of a guy that started off slow and ended up having a great year was Kiki Chisholm, mm-hmm. and that's why I think he's poised for a huge year next year. But we're getting off topic, but you get the point. It can sometimes take a little bit of time for guys to warm up, but I think both of these guys are going to be great. We've already mentioned Allie Green a couple times, but he was the second Tulsa transfer to commit to Mizzou this week, and he is 6'3", 205. Again, same thing, had some of his best games at Tulsa against Power 5 competition. He had season-high 7 tackles and a pass breakup against Michigan State and Oklahoma State both this past year. And he had an offer from Arkansas, and it sounded like it came down to Missouri and Texas Tech as the two schools he was considering. I think he's from Texas as well.
Yep.
He tweeted out his offer from Missouri literally like an hour within of Evans committing a few days ago. Sounds like he had a few academic issues he had to shore up just with transfer credits and stuff like that, so he wasn't able to announce as immediately as he wanted to, but sure. I don't think anything really changed there.
Worth mentioning real quick with Evans, Mizzou did beat out, as far as teams that were in his top 5, Texas, Notre Dame, and Texas Tech.
Yep.
And so it is interesting. Allie Green, it sounds like Missouri was kind of neck and neck for a little bit with Texas Tech. So instead of Texas Tech getting the package deal, Tulsa transfers, it's Mizzou, and feels good.
What's your favorite package deal of Mizzou history?
Mizzou package deal. It's obviously Michael Porter Jr. and Jonte Porter, and I feel like that's the only package deal
that's the only one I can think of.
That's the only one that's actually happened. I feel like the most infamous one is the E.J. Liddell Mario McKinney package deal. That was never going to happen.
Yeah, that didn't turn out so great.
Yeah.
Anyways, Allie Green is definitely had a little more consistency in his time at Tulsa. He had 41 starts over his, I guess, 3 years there. 91 and a half tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 11 passes broken up, and an interception. So he's physical. He's going to come up and play the run, and he'll jam you. He'll jam the wide receivers. He's very physical at the line of scrimmage. So a very experienced player. So just can't wait to see it all.
I'm ready for football season.
I've been ready, but I'm super ready now.
Sheesh.
It's funny that Tulsa's pass rush was awful last year. So these guys are used to having to cover guys for a long time. So hopefully that will
a bad thing.
Not be as much of an issue. I know our defensive line has been a little suspect at times in the last few years, to say the least. So, but with a little more continuity,
if we can give them something to work with, then it sounds like they can get the job done.
It sounds like it.
So, should we take stock of the defensive backs on the roster now a little bit? Have you prepped anything like that? Because you might have to lead this. Because we've talked about these two guys and Rakestraw.
Yeah.
That seems like should we be penciling in Allie Green as like starter snaps?
I think so, and the reason why is because I think Steve Wilkes wants to run a 4-2-5, and he's run that in the past in the NFL with the Browns specifically. But I think they've got the personnel to be able to run a 4-2-5, because obviously when you run that's four defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 secondary players. So that's, when you think about that, that's immediately a little bit suspect to the run, or vulnerable to the run, I should say, potentially if your defensive linemen aren't getting the job done. But
so are we talking about one of those 5 is going to be kind of that hybrid safety linebacker position?
Yeah, or just like a cornerback in the slot only, maybe 2 cornerbacks on the outside, 1 in the slot or something like that, and then 2 safeties. Yeah, that might be what they decide to do with it, or kind of like a hybrid linebacker or something like that. But and they can get pretty creative with that. But if I had to guess what it's going to look like, I think it's going to be Rakestraw and Evans on the outside, Green maybe in the slot, and then Martez Manuel is obviously a staple at strong safety. But I would think the 5th guy here is probably the one I'm least sure about, and that's Jalen Carlisle starting at free safety. And I know he played cornerback last year as a true freshman, but definitely has the body to play safety, and he switched to safety in the offseason, and I think the coaches really like him there, and he just seems like a really good player that you want to just have on the field in some capacity. So I think that's why they moved into safety. So I think
Sean Robinson's out there too.
Yeah, you never know. I think that will be the 5. But I don't know. Again, you can get creative with that. It may not be what they run every single play. Jelani Williams is another guy that could end up playing free safety. I think it's going to be one of those 2 guys. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting, man.
So, you may not have thought about this, but defensive line, linebackers, defensive secondary, just rank them real quick. Your confidence of them being able to hold their own through the SEC season.
Honestly, you gotta put. That is such a trick question, because thinking about what we lost in the secondary, 2 guys that are in the NFL now. Think about that gaping hole. How many snaps those guys have played for Mizzou over the last 2 or 3 seasons with Bledsoe and Gillespie.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really tough for
a lot of continuity that Mizzou is losing.
Yeah, it's really, really tough to replace that kind of continuity. But I think I'm still just going to say the secondary is going to be the strongest unit, just with the talent they have in that room. I think they're going to be really good. Devin Nicholson's kind of a staple at linebacker. I think he's going to be really good, but there's a little bit up in the air. Who's going to play that other linebacker spot? Could be Chad Bailey. Don't know for sure, but I think just because of the continuity that we have on the defensive line, I'll probably say that's 2nd and linebackers 3rd. But defensive line could be interesting too. We have some new guys, some younger guys, but obviously Jeffcoat is great, and you have some returning seniors that have been in the program for, it feels like, 85 years. Chris Turner. I feel like he's got to be 30 years old at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting mix of new talent and returning kind of consistency that is gonna be fun to watch. New coaches, new coordinator.
I love getting these early takes from you because I don't know. You even surprise me sometimes. Like, you know the roster way better than I do at this point in the off season. And I'm just like, all right, Kyle, like, tell me what's going to happen. And I don't know. It's just fun. And then a lot of times you're correct. So I like it.
My best take was Nick Bolton. So if I can be even half as right,
take that to the bank every time.
On that, I'll live with it.
So how does this change your overall expectations for the full squad, the full season? I see there's a lot of people getting pretty excited on the internet, and there's a bit of a hype train going on right now, and I don't blame anybody, but this is still year 2 for Coach Drinkwitz. This is still a lot of new staff. This will be, some major coaches' first season in Columbia. Missouri is still young at many positions, and haven't been incredibly successful the last couple seasons. Although I would argue last year was better than I hoped for.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of chatter on Twitter as well, and I'm right there with everybody that's getting excited and getting hyped. I think there is a pretty big difference between expectations and what can happen. And when I think about my expectations, it's probably a little bit lower, I guess, than what I've seen on Twitter, just because I've been a Missouri fan for a while. I see how these things go. There's a lot of talent in the SEC, and there's so many players on Mizzou's team that I love, but every team has a whole list of guys they love too, and a lot of great recruits that are in their program. I definitely, I expect Missouri to win at least 7 or 8 games this year. Does that mean that they can't go win 9 or 10? Absolutely not. I think they're perfectly capable of. That means they beat everybody they're supposed to beat. They won their toss-up games, and they probably stole one from Georgia or Florida if they're able to get to that 10-win mark. And is that impossible?
Texas A&M.
Yeah, A&M as well. Is that impossible? Of course not. Is it what I'm expecting, though? Definitely not. Right. And I think that's how you set yourself up for disappointment, is if you come in thinking 10 wins or nothing. And I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. You can do whatever you want, and if they win 10 games, you can tell me you were right, and I'll be happy to say you were. Yeah. But when I think of the word expectations, I think that really means if it's less than this, I will be disappointed.
Right. And yeah, I feel like we've had versions of this conversation multiple times on this podcast where we know you have to temper expectations to some extent. And I can't really add much more that you didn't already say, but even looking at the non-conference schedule for Missouri this season, Central Michigan, Boston College, North Texas.
Yeah, Boston College will be a sticky game, I think. I think people are underrating
on the road,
them in their mind a little bit.
And I feel like as Mizzou fans, it's easy to just get in this little bubble where Coach Drinkwitz is getting a lot of wins and there's a lot of good things happening with the program. But where there's also a lot of really good things happening? Athens, Georgia. Yeah. They are pretty much all good news all the time, always getting all the best players. Yeah. And
I will absolutely say I think Coach Drinkwitz will take Missouri potentially to a place they have maybe never been before. I think the recruiting may already be there. Yeah. But just give a little bit of time. And, if it's 3 years from now and we still haven't had a 10-win season, then maybe I will be a little bit disappointed. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But for this upcoming season, yeah, I think you said it. It's still a lot of new coaches. Even Bazelak's still young. I think they're going to let him loose a little bit, but he's still young, and some of our best players are transfers or freshmen on the offense.
We lost a lot. Yeah. Just look at the NFL draft. And that all those players, all those NFL caliber players that Missouri lost and are going to try to replace. That's not easy.
Yep.
And if I'm looking at the schedule, I'm just wanting to be in these games to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, no SEC game is a given. So just, it's easy to like think back to like 2013 when Missouri just like handled everybody and then won and then did pick up those like 2 games that they didn't expect to win. And that doesn't happen very often at all.
Yeah. There's a reason that was like the most special season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally fine with saying Mizzou can get there. Not sure I'm ready to commit to that being my expectation yet.
Right. Need a little bit more momentum on the field.
Yeah.
I think.
So without getting too much into it, without really analyzing it game by game, Mizzou goes 6-6. Are you disappointed?
Yes.
I'd agree with you. I think 6-6. I'm a little disappointed. 7-5. I think I can live with it.
Yeah.
And anything above 7-5, it's gravy.
Yeah. I'd be ecstatic. Yeah. 6-6 would just be like, man, we're back here again.
Yeah.
We're doing this again.
There is a little too much hype, I think, in 6-6. That means you lost probably all of your toss-up games, including the ones that you're supposed to lose as well. So, which is just kind of like you want to have at least one of those games where you beat. Or you want to have those seasons where you have at least one of those games where you win a game you're not supposed to win, or you win all of those games against Kentucky and South Carolina and Arkansas.
Well, and now we're getting too into it, but Kentucky game 2. I mean, that's
a pretty fast SEC start.
We're gonna know something right away.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave it at that.
There's
We'll got a lot of time left.
A lot of episodes in the summer left.
We cannot be breaking down the schedule in too much detail this early.
I agree.
But the coaching staff is on a roll. They're going to keep it going. Yeah. That my expectations for off-season stuff. I mean, have high expectations for what Coach Drinkwitz can do.
Yeah.
Every single off-season.
Yeah.
Because he's proven it.
Yeah, he's
in all different ways, like high school recruits, transfers, grad transfers. I mean, flipping guys. He's got it figured out.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it, I think the sky's the limit.
If the on-field performance in the next few years is anything like the recruiting game, holy cow!
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah. We are looking at potentially
new territory,
like sustained top tier football being played.
Yep,
I wouldn't mind it.
Either.
Got anything else for him this week?
I think that's it.
Producer Cameron, you got anything else for him?
Nope. All right, everybody. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week.